My wife said my brother was her soulmate since her astrologer said so. Later, I discovered brother planned it all. I'm 35, and this is the story of how my brother orchestrated the destruction of my marriage through an elaborate scheme involving astrology, manipulation, and betrayal. I married Sharon when I was 28. She was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner, intelligent, beautiful, and capable of lighting up any room with her presence. We met during my final year of college, and our connection was instant. We shared the same taste in movies, enjoyed cooking together, and both dreamed of traveling the world. After 3 years of dating that felt like a fairy tale, we tied the knot. I thought we had it all figured out. Then 2020 hit, and like everyone else, we found ourselves confined to our home during the pandemic. The first few months weren't bad. We made the best of it, cooking elaborate meals, binge-watching shows, and trying to find joy in the simple things. That's when Sharon discovered astrology. It started innocently enough. She'd read me my daily horoscope over coffee, joke about Mercury being in retrograde when something went wrong, or blame the full moon for a bad night's sleep. I found it endearing at first, just a harmless hobby to help cope with the uncertainty of lockdown. But I had no idea this would become the weapon my brother would use to destroy everything we had built. As the weeks turned into months, Sharon's interest in astrology deepened. She began following astrologers on social media, spending hours watching videos about birth charts and zodiac compatibility. She started making decisions based on planetary alignments and cosmic energies. Even our meal times were dictated by what the stars supposedly deemed favorable. I tried to be supportive, even when she began spending hundreds of dollars on professional readings. I told myself it was her way of finding meaning during a chaotic time. I tried to have a heart-to-heart with Sharon one evening. We were sitting on our couch, the same spot where we used to cuddle and watch movies, but now it felt like there was an invisible wall between us. "Sharon, I'm worried about us," I said, trying to keep my voice gentle. "It feels like every decision we make has to go through some cosmic filter first." She stiffened beside me. "You just don't get it. The stars don't lie." "I'm trying to understand, I really am," I said, running my hands through my hair in frustration. "But it feels like we can't even decide what to have for dinner without consulting your birth chart first." "That's exactly your problem," she snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're so closed-minded, you mock everything that doesn't fit into your neat little logical box." "I'm not mocking anything," I protested. "I'm just concerned about." "No, you're being cynical and unsupportive," she cut me off. "You've never respected my spiritual journey, never." She pulled out her phone, pulling up some astrology app. "See, this is exactly what my chart warned me about. Our stars are in conflict right now. That's why you can't understand." I sat there, feeling helpless. This wasn't about respecting beliefs anymore. My wife was slipping away, replacing our real connection with celestial coordinates, and I had no idea how to reach her. Every attempt to discuss it just drove her further into her astrological fortress. But something changed when she started consulting with a particular astrologer, one I would later discover was hired by my brother, Andy. This astrologer, who called herself Nikki, began telling Sharon things that seemed specifically designed to create doubt in our marriage. She would point out supposed incompatibilities in our birth charts, suggest that our relationship was cosmically misaligned, and hint at a more suitable partner whose chart aligned perfectly with Sharon's. What I didn't know then was that Andy had been meticulously planning this for months. He had hired Nikki, providing her with detailed information about both Sharon and me, our relationship history, and even our daily routines. He had been watching, waiting, and gathering intelligence that would make the manipulation more convincing. The truth started unraveling in the most unexpected way. One afternoon, while helping my parents clean their attic, I discovered an old box of Andy's things. Inside were notebooks filled with research about astrology, scripts for readings, and most damning of all, emails between him and Nikki discussing their plan to separate Sharon and me. My hands shook as I read through the evidence. Andy had been in love with Sharon since the day I introduced them, but instead of dealing with his feelings honorably, he had chosen to orchestrate this elaborate scheme. He had studied Sharon's growing interest in astrology during the pandemic and saw his opportunity. The emails revealed everything. Andy had specifically sought out an astrologer willing to participate in his plan. He had provided Nikki with personal information about Sharon's fears, insecurities, and dreams, things he had observed during family gatherings and casual interactions. This wasn't just opportunistic manipulation, it was calculated destruction. I found receipts for thousands of dollars paid to Nikki, detailed instructions about what messages to convey in each reading, and even a timeline for when to introduce the idea that Andy was Sharon's true soulmate. He had planned everything down to the smallest detail, including how to make it seem like cosmic destiny rather than calculated manipulation. The most painful discovery was a journal entry where Andy wrote about his long-standing jealousy. He admitted that he had always resented me for finding happiness first, for building a life with someone like Sharon while he remained alone. His bitterness had festered until it turned into this twisted plan. I took photos of everything with trembling hands. This was the evidence I had been missing when I first tried to tell my family about Andy's manipulation. I had known in my gut that something was wrong, but without proof, my claims had seemed like the desperate accusations of a jealous ex-husband. The hardest part was deciding how to handle this information. Should I confront Andy first? Tell Sharon? Go to our parents? The weight of the truth felt overwhelming, but before I could decide, fate intervened in an ironic twist. Sharon showed up at my apartment one evening, tears streaming down her face. She had discovered some of the truth on her own. Andy had gotten drunk and let slip details about hiring Nikki. His guilty conscience, loosened by alcohol, had revealed just enough to make Sharon start questioning everything. I invited her in, and for the first time in months, we had an honest conversation. I showed her the evidence I had found. As she read through the emails and notes, her face went through a range of emotions: shock, anger, betrayal, and finally, devastating realization. "I was so stupid," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I let myself be manipulated. I threw away our marriage because I believed in some cosmic plan that was actually just your brother's sick game." The truth hit her hard. All those hours spent listening to Nikki's readings, all the decisions made based on supposed planetary alignments. It had all been orchestrated to serve Andy's obsession. The astrologer she had trusted had been feeding her exactly what Andy wanted her to hear, using her genuine interest in astrology as a weapon against our marriage. Sharon's relationship with Andy crumbled immediately after this revelation. She couldn't bear to look at him, knowing how he had manipulated her vulnerability during one of the most uncertain times in recent history. The pandemic had left her feeling lost and searching for meaning, and he had used that to his advantage. When we finally confronted Andy together, his reaction was unexpected. Instead of denying everything or trying to justify his actions, he broke down. He admitted to everything: his obsession with Sharon, his resentment toward me, and the elaborate scheme he had created to tear us apart. "I convinced myself that if the universe wanted you two together, my plan wouldn't work," he said between sobs. "I told myself that if Sharon could be influenced to leave you, it meant they weren't meant to be together anyway." Our parents were devastated when they learned the truth. They had supported Andy and Sharon's relationship, believing in the astrological connection that had supposedly brought them together. Finding out that their son had orchestrated such an elaborate deception shook them to their core. The aftermath was messy. Sharon moved out of Andy's place immediately, and our family was left in shambles. Our parents struggled to reconcile the son they thought they knew with the person capable of such calculated betrayal. The harmony of our once close family was shattered. Sharon asked me to forgive her, to consider giving our marriage another chance. She spent hours explaining how Andy and Nikki had gradually manipulated her worldview, using her genuine interest in astrology to plant seeds of doubt about our relationship while simultaneously pushing her toward Andy. But some things, once broken, can't be fixed. While I forgave Sharon for being manipulated during a vulnerable time in her life, I couldn't forget how easily our marriage had been derailed. The trust we had built over years had been damaged beyond repair. The whole experience changed how I view relationships and family. I learned that sometimes the people closest to us can be capable of incredible deception, and that trust, once broken, leaves scars that never fully heal. Today, a year after discovering the truth, I'm still working on rebuilding my life. I've cut Andy out completely. His betrayal was too deep, too calculated to forgive. Sharon and I maintain a cordial relationship, but we've both accepted that we can't go back to what we had before. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. As for Sharon, last I heard, she's in therapy, working through the trauma of being manipulated by someone she trusted. She's abandoned astrology completely, unable to separate her genuine interest in it from the way it was used to manipulate her. Sometimes, when I think about everything that happened, I wonder if Andy ever found what he was looking for, or if the guilt of what he did haunts him as much as the memory of it haunts me. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked to learn. Mine was about the complexity of trust and betrayal, and how the people who can hurt us most are often the ones we never suspect. But the story doesn't end there. In the months following the revelation, I discovered more layers to Andy's deception. Through mutual friends, I learned that he had been systematically isolating Sharon from her support network even before the astrology scheme began. He would casually mention to her friends how she had been acting strange or becoming distant, planting seeds of doubt in their minds. This made it easier for them to accept when she eventually left me, as Andy had already created a narrative of our marriage being troubled. During one particularly emotional session with her therapist, Sharon uncovered memories of how Andy had subtly encouraged her initial interest in astrology. He had accidentally left books about zodiac compatibility in places where she would find them, knowing she was feeling vulnerable during the pandemic lockdown. He had created social media accounts to comment on her astrology posts, building her confidence in these beliefs while simultaneously steering her toward his chosen narrative. The professional astrology community, upon learning of how their practice had been used as a tool for manipulation, was outraged. Several prominent astrologers wrote articles about the ethical implications of using spiritual beliefs to manipulate others, using our story as a cautionary tale. This led to discussions about establishing ethical guidelines for professional astrologers to prevent similar abuse of trust. Andy's life also unraveled, though in different ways. His manipulation of Sharon became known in his professional circles, leading to him losing several important clients who couldn't trust someone capable of such calculated deception. He eventually had to relocate to another state, unable to face the consequences of his actions in our community. I've also learned to look for the subtle signs of manipulation in relationships. Andy's elaborate scheme taught me that sometimes the most dangerous deceptions aren't the obvious lies, but the careful, patient manipulation of someone's beliefs and perceptions. It's made me more cautious, but also more appreciative of genuine, straightforward relationships. Looking back, I realized that this experience, while painful, has taught me invaluable lessons about trust, family, and the importance of maintaining one's own perspective even in close relationships. I'm choosing to move forward, carrying these lessons with me but not letting them define my future. After all, that's the only way to truly heal from betrayal, to learn from it without letting it consume you. The stars may not control our destiny, but our choices and actions certainly do. Andy chose deception, and he'll have to live with those consequences. I'm choosing honesty, healing, and growth. And in the end, that's a far better path to follow than any constellation could ever map out.